Hello.
All right. Everyone's ready? Do we have Blake on Zoom as well?
I am here.
All right. Thank you, Blake. I will call the meeting to order. The City Council of Dunsmuir, 6 p.m., February 3rd, 2022. Councilwoman Lucchese, would you like to lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call for this evening?
Councilmember Arth.
Here.
Councilmember Deutsch.
Roll call.
Bruce, you here?
Councilmember Deutsch, can you hear us? I see him there. Let's move on to Mr. Keisler. Councilmember Keisler.
I'm here.
Councilmember Lucchese.
Here.
Bruce, can you hear us?
I'm having audio problems working on it, he says.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Bruce?
And Mayor Brian.
Present.
And we're waiting on Bruce to just fix his microphone.
Okay. Let us know when you get that fixed, Bruce, or just raise your hand physically. If you
Obviously,
need us to.
we can all see him. He's here.
Yep, definitely. All right, but let us know if you need to hold up at any point during the meeting. We have no special presentations and announcement this evening, so I'm going to go into our general public comment for this evening. If anyone would like to, you can come up to the podium or raise your hand if you're on Zoom, and you'll be allotted 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. This is for any item that is not on the agenda, so anything not on the agenda later, or any general item or item that's on the consent agenda for this evening. The consent agenda is just check register from January 15th through January 28th. So please come to the podium, or if you're on Zoom, go to the reactions tab now and hit the raise your hand button. I don't see any in the room. Are there any on Zoom?
Nothing on Zoom.
All right. I'll now close general public comment for this evening and move forward with council and staff comments. Acting City Manager Blake Michelson, would you like to begin?
Sure. Yes. Thanks, Council. I don't have anything big to report. Just normal, usual things going on.
All right. Thank you so much. And we're very honored to have our new police chief, Sergeant Ortiz, here tonight.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
We can hear you.
At least this time I didn't yell at the TV.
Yeah.
But, I don't have much to report. I just wanted to keep the council updated. I've recently reached out to the Siskiyou County Code Enforcement and Environmental Health. Nothing so much within the city limits of Dunsmuir, but our close neighbors that I feel impacts the city in a negative fashion with the environmental impacts and the code violations, and essentially the kegging up of less desirable criminal elements. So my primary focus this last week was on the 100 block of South 2nd Street. It's right next to our city, and the south end down near Manfredi's as well. Other than that, it's been a fairly quiet week.
All right, thank you so much for taking the initiative on that. I know our brethren Dunsmuirians in South Dunsmuir have been suffering the last 2 years with us having the code enforcement presence in the county, not so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions of Sergeant Ortiz?
Well, just out of ignorance, is that Shasta County or Siskiyou County?
That's Siskiyou County,
Okay.
but it's not within, it's right on the line of the Dunsmuir city limits.
Good.
All right, thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Keisler.
Hey, Sarge, will you have some statistics for us next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And appreciate you. And I'm concur with the mayor. Thank you for the South End. There are a lot of people, they need your presence. Keep it up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you so much. Then I know you're here for another specific topic, but we're honored to have you with us here tonight, Mr. Kenny.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm here for, it's on the agenda there towards the end.
Yeah. Do you have any comments otherwise?
No.
All right, thank you. All right, and let's move into council comments for this evening. Councilman Arth, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, colleagues. I'm sort of excited about the prospect of baseball coming back to the city this summer. Some of you seen the banner on the stands at the ballpark, and I'm friends with some of those. They're centered largely around graduates of Dunsmuir High School, but they are working with the Parks and Rec District, which caused me to go on the Park and Rec District website. And there's 5 members of the Park and Rec District. The city appoints 3, the county appoints 2. And collectively, they are conducting a vision and planning survey. And out of the vision and planning survey will come their priorities for the year 2022 and 2023, with the notion COVID has largely put all of these assets in a state of semi-deep freeze. The city park, the botanical garden, the ballpark, the community center, all of these are city assets, as I understand it. So we know the swimming program is always an issue every summer. We hope the Osprey Trail is coming soon. And what I'm hoping, Mr. Mayor, is because really we're partners with the Park and Rec District, could we get them to come on a quarterly basis and improve the communications between the two bodies, capital needs, expense needs, what events we can help them with to better understand how we can make better use of the assets. So that is my report. I think we need to work more closely and understand each other better for our economy, for citizen and visitor events, and for making better use of the city assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Arth. Councilman Lucas?
Thank you. Really just not much. I've just been plugging away on the Parks Per Capita Grant for Children's Park with some last minute paperwork and updates for them. And then just keeping up with Osprey Falls. We should have a site plan back to Union Pacific at the end of this week, hopefully early next week. We're waiting for the Trails Association to put that together. But just kind of keeping everybody up to date on that. And then I met with the library board, which thank you for that. And we did kind of a little bit of a meeting about improvements to the city library that they'd like to see. And so they came up with a list in the meeting and then they put one together, but they're going to continue to take a look at what the needs of the library are as it evolves, post-COVID, looking at different options for the library. They're really interested in looking for grant dollars and programs to fund a feasibility study and to hire a specialist for the library to take a look at their space allocation and how to best utilize the current space and what upgrades they could do to generate some revenue from other programs and to just generally improve the user experience of that building. One of the really big things that they want to focus on is some architectural updates to the building to make it more cohesive with the historic downtown and make it more inviting and more of a statement building as opposed to kind of blending in so that people can kind of see it. Frankly, I think it looks kind of like a bar right now with those cute little, like the little square glass panes. So they agreed there's definitely some need for ADA compliance, so it's more accessible to residents and visitors who want to use it. So just working with them on that, just to kind of see what we can do to start getting that building. And it is a city-owned building, so anything we bring forward for that would come to the city council for approval prior to anything happening. But just kind of looking at cost-effective ways to improve that facility. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Good job. Councilman Keisler.
I have to echo what Peter was saying about softball coming to Dunsmuir. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Railroad Days. There's a lot of things happening that the Rotary's behind. The Brewfest is going to be coming. So I'm excited about things for the future for Dunsmuir. The summer looks pretty good. Other than that, I'm good.
All right, thank you, Councilman Keisler. Councilman Deutsch.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. First of all, I want to apologize. I really would like to be there in person, but I just am still worried about Omicron. I got a heart attack in the past and et cetera. So I'm just trying to be cautious. With that in mind, I do want to report I attended my first DPAC meeting, and there were a couple of items that were brought up that do have a relationship with the city. First of all, there was a concern that there was a look to get a new set of horns for the fire station, emergency horns, both north and south. And they had done a research on that. Stephen Cutting, I think, had done the research, and they haven't gotten far enough to come up with dollars, but they were asking what if we could possibly look at some of the COVID financing to support that in terms of if we were to lose power in the middle of a disaster, there wouldn't be the ability to get out the word through the horn. So that's one thing that they want to look at, and I'll be following up on them with that. The other one is that Mike Delabano in particular, although he's not a member right now, was part of the meeting, and his big push is green waste. And so I told them right now that the two people to talk to on the council are Mr. Arth and Ms. Lucchese. So I think if he hasn't reached out to you, he will be, and looking to see how he could help support that and work with the DPAC to help work on that. Finally, they went over the various grants that are out there right now for fuel reduction. There's a map on that, and I guess that'll be part of their newsletter, but I was glad to be a part of that and connect them into the council. So thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Councilman Deutsch. Let's move into committee reports. Were there any committees that met?
I apologize. We did not have a quorum for the finance committee, so we did not meet on Monday. That was my fault. I did completely spaced on that. But we will have, I believe, a regular meeting in the future. We're just, again, going over the audit and any needed mid-year budget adjustments.
Okay.
Could we get the bank on the agenda?
Yeah, that was the other one. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
All right.
Thank you.
Then the committee for searching for a permanent city manager is happy to report that we've received 2 submissions in response to our request for proposal for a firm to conduct the search. We're just received the second one yesterday, so we're going to be putting something together for the next meeting. On that.
The RFP closes tomorrow.
I think Monday, actually.
Okay. Yeah, it should be closing soon, but we do have 2 options at least.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Any other additional committees in the meantime?
Well, we didn't exactly have a solid waste committee meeting, but the chair and I met to try to push toward finality the survey that we envision going into the utility bill of every customer relating to the item we're going to talk about later, the state and county program for disposing of waste.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll have to look forward to hearing more about that in the coming item. If there's no more committee reports, let's move into item 7, approval of the minutes for the meeting of January 20th, 2022.
So moved. Or
Is there a
motion to
second?
approve the meeting minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Against? Motion carries unanimously. Let's move into the consent agenda for this evening. As said before, it is just the check register from January 15th through January 28th. Is there any discussion?
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
All right, there's a motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Against? Motion carries unanimously. Public hearing. We have the first reading of ordinance 573, opting into the Siskiyou County JPA Solid Waste Edible Food Recovery Agreement.
Do you want me to take this, Blake, or?
If you got it, yeah, you probably have a
Sure.
bunch more knowledge.
Okay, thank you. So Senate Bill 1383 passed the legislature last year and took effect as of January 1, 2022. It is referred to as the composting law. The formal name is the short-lived climate reduction law. Basically, they're trying to reduce the amount of CO2 and methane gas released into the atmosphere to meet the California greenhouse gas goals. Part of the methane gas that they found is that there's a significant amount of it being released from statewide landfills from food waste going into regular landfills. So the changes in Senate Bill 1383 mandates that cities must institute a curbside green waste pickup, which would be organics for composting, as well as yard waste. And then they're also requiring entities that are tier 1 or tier 2, which basically depends on the type of use and how large they are. For example, supermarkets or stores selling food over 10,000 square feet would be considered part of that. They are mandating that those types of uses now must come into compliance and recover food prior to its expiration and donate it at no cost to food recovery programs. So food banks, elderly food programs that deliver them to their doorsteps, among other pieces in there. There's some other pieces in Senate Bill 1383 that we will have to comply with as well that aren't nearly as interesting, like purchasing policies. So the Joint Powers Authority for Siskiyou County under solid waste is all of the jurisdictions within Siskiyou County, including the county. And that is basically just to help absorb some of the legislation coming through, because solid waste requires a larger supply chain than what the city of Dunsmuir can handle. And so that group basically helps us meet these goals that are set for us by the state of California, as well as CalRecycle, which is the agency that oversees that. So what we have here is the Joint Powers Authority approved a county-wide ordinance that exempts us from some of the programs, which you'll see here mainly is, as a small city, we are exempt from doing organic waste collection program and some of the edible food recovery program until January 1, 2025 or 2026. Can't remember which one it is, but it gives us an extension on that. The opt-in resolution or the opt-in ordinance will also assign the county the ability to enforce the program on our behalf. So the county right now has a consultant that's going through and working on the implementation program for this. So they will have all of the identified tier 1 and tier 2 businesses that would need to comply with this ordinance. And then it would start to put together implementation programs for that. So the ordinance itself is required to be adopted by all jurisdictions under Siskiyou County. This is part of the SB 1383, is that the city itself has to develop ordinances to deal with these things. And adopting the JPA resolution or adopting the county's JPA basically covers that for us without having to go through all of the work of developing our own ordinances and going through that process. And also, it is required to be eligible for the grant funding that closed February 1st to fund these types of programs. So the JPA has filed on behalf of all of the cities in the county for approximately $220,000 for this calendar year to be able to start to investigate and handle the capacity of these changes. And they're applying on behalf for all of us. So we will be able to get some of that money back and benefit off of the changes in that. So if we do not pass this ordinance, we would not be eligible to collect those funds. And then if we do not adopt the ordinance, we would be fined by the state through CalRecycle for not complying with Senate Bill 1383.
Question?
Yes.
Juliana, is this something that we've already started talking about with our waste removal and part of that contract that we've negotiated? Is this something that at least we're talking about ahead of time with
Yes.
with Clemens?
Yeah, so in the contract renegotiation with Clemens, we did put into that contract that we will have to do curbside pickup, and they are willing to do that service. So they're in the process of looking at what the cost of that service will be, because we have to provide new bins for the pickup, as well as the additional route time and human power to be able to do that. And then Clemens also has a representative on the solid waste ad hoc who helps us, discuss how we're going to try and meet these needs. And the survey that Councilmember Arth discussed is basically a customer survey for solid waste, just kind of looking at the other types of services that they may be interested in. But ultimately, this will have to go to a 218, and it will be an additional cost to the ratepayer for those solid waste services. But we don't anticipate that rate change happening for a couple of years. Like I said, we do have a exempt status if we adopt this ordinance until, I believe, 2026.
Thank you.
So on that, we're not exempt if we do not pass this?
Correct. So we would have had, if we do not pass this and accept the rural exemption, we would have had to institute these changes as of January 1, 2022. And at this point, nobody in Siskiyou County is able to start this process yet. A lot of the rural entities, the reason why they started the rural exemption is because most rural areas do not have the supply chain or the means to be able to institute a huge change in the solid waste shift. So it would be a significant amount of dollars in the next 218 process to do this in the next year. This gives us a little bit more time to try to find like a regional composting facility to take the composting waste, as well as help Clemens plan for the future to get the appropriate equipment and bins to be able to do it.
Any further questions?
And by the way, it is January 1, 2026, so we are exempt until then.
There's no further questions. I'm going to open this up for public comment this evening. As before, please either come to the podium if you're in the room with us, or raise your hand if you're on Zoom. You'll be allotted 3 minutes to comment on this item.
Nothing is on Zoom that I see.
All right, I don't see anyone coming to the podium. I will close this public hearing. We can continue with discussion.
I'm happy to move the item. I have comments and they can come now or later.
Please proceed.
Move it?
If you'd like to move it, or
Yeah, I would. Because it reflects, we're very, very blessed to have Jason Ledbetter at the county level. We're very blessed to have Juliana at the county and the local level. And our committee, which does include Mike Delabana. Mike Delabana is one of our citizen members and has expressed his interest in the green waste portion of it, which is fantastic. So I'm in strong support of the architecture. We have the state plugged in, we have the county plugged in. For the city, as I read this, we can't wait until 2025 to do the things we need to do as a city. So if Blake, well, we lost Blake.
No, Blake's in the upper left.
Oh, good. Oh, there he is. So in your memo on fiscal impact, I think it should show that this is not a budgeted item. I think it should show that a budget adjustment will be needed. Apropos to the comments of Juliana, this is going to require rate increases in our solid waste fund. There's no way to get about it. We're going to try to get as much state money as we can, as much county money as we can. But in the end, Clemens is going to be buying trucks. Clemens is going to be buying bins. And we need to develop a timeline over the months ahead to avoid rate shock and to intelligently plan so that we do our best to meet the goals of the program. But with that, I am happy to move that this project is exempt from CEQA There's several findings to that effect. And that we introduce and read ordinance 573 by title only, and that we direct staff to bring ordinance 573 for its second reading and adoption at the next regular meeting. And then we will have the SCWMA edible food recovery ordinance in place.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's move. I guess roll call vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work on that. And let's move into old business. We are very excited this evening under our COVID relief funds, use of funds item, to finally have the library roof back on the agenda. Blake?
Yes, all right, so thank you. So building inspector James and I have met. James actually was up on the roof inspecting. We've come to he thought that the roof wasn't as bad as he thought. So that's good news. He thinks any of the 3 bids that we did get would be satisfactory. He did suggest or notice that there is bubbling of part of the roof. So cutting out that section and redoing it is beneficial. I've reached back out to 2 of the bidders, and they have both responded back to me. And so the lowest qualified and respectable bid is from Perfectionist Construction still, and that is Nolan Henry there. And so that's the recommendation at this point. There's even a little talk about redoing some of the scupper action as well, which is the drain pipe going through the eastern wall. Yeah, eastern wall. So all of that work is within the current proposal that you have in your packet.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, are there any questions? Councilman Arth?
Well, in terms of inspecting the building and everything that Councilmember Lucchese reported on in terms of making the city asset more of an asset, that's going to take some money. And I'm looking at the north wall of the library building. Did you guys look at that at all?
No, the exterior wall, no.
Well, if you look at it, it's failing badly. It's not just the paint failing. There's terms for concrete and masonry buildings, but the concrete itself is failing, so that if you went up there with a scraping thing, you would go into the wall surface itself. Is that related to the roof? Don't know.
The plaster's failing, Peter. You're right. You're absolutely right. I love the scraping thing. But yeah, he's right. The plaster is failing on the entire north wall, not the paint, the plaster. And the plaster is applied to the brick wall. That is the actual exterior building, the wall of the building. The plaster and the paint are aesthetics. They are cosmetics. They are to dress the building up. Once that has failed, the block is compromised.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a great item to bring up. And if council wishes to direct staff to research the north wall of the library, we can certainly do that. Let's stick to the recommendation regarding the library roof replacement at this time, unless you see.
My last 2 questions on the roof are, when I look at the bid, and I assume on item 1, clean and prep roof 2, it says accept, I think it means accept, SS 144 roof system. Do you know, what is that?
I don't have the specifics on it, but it is a type of material. It's a rubber material that's laid over the top. And that is basically just a rubber waterproofing membrane. Whereas the actually, no, the main waterproofing is the foam underneath that.
Right.
And then that exterior top layer is to help protect the foam.
And then when we get to 3, the ponding problem, is the resolution now that the contractor is going to cut those parts of the roof out and build them up?
Refill the foam, yes.
And then the 20-year SS roof system, is that a foam roof or something else?
It's a foam roof with
The rubber
with this cover.
membrane.
Yeah,
Membrane.
With it's for the foam and the membrane.
so I believe this thing is called the Durolast Supreme, which itself has a 15-year NDL warranty.
And that's my last question is, I don't see any sort of a warranty represented.
I did ask James about, excuse me, I did ask James about that, and he did say it's a 20-year warranty.
But our lawyer would tell us we ought to have that in writing. And then, of course, all the availability dates have come and gone.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes,
might,
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to take this moment just to acknowledge this new guy, James, that has taken over for Dave. We've all walked jobs with him. We've all done things with him. And I think we're lucky to find somebody that stepped into Dave's shoes as good as this guy's been doing. He's been pretty good. I think we got lucky.
All right, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Councilman Keisler. Are there any more questions on the staff report or the quote? All right, if there are no further questions, I will open it up to public comment. As before, please come to the podium or raise your hand if you're on Zoom.
Surprised Tim Holt isn't saying anything.
Come to the next meeting.
All right, I will now close. Please, guys, I will now close public comment on this item. Let's proceed with discussion.
I'd just like to say thank you for staff for putting in the due diligence and entertaining me to get that assessment. So thank you very much for doing that. With that, I'm happy to make a motion to accept the roof quote from Perfectionist Roofing for the amount of $15,500.
I'll second that.
All right, a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Councilman R.
Well, because we have funds available, I still liked what I put forth at the last meeting, which is that we budget $50,000 for the library. The roof is the first priority. The wall, we've got an east wall problem. We got a north wall problem.
I believe that Blake said he's going to bring it back for the drain. So I think that's something we could request them to include as well if you'd like.
Well,
The wall may be a significant expense.
yeah, but
But
it
then
is,
they'd like to make the front of it look nicer, which I like.
yeah. I think we're very committed to our library. I think that's a consensus on council. What we're being asked right now, though, specifically is whether we want to pay $15,000 or $30-something thousand for the same product. So.
And I'll, in terms of that, I'll be bringing the items back as the library board becomes comfortable with the recommendations.
I'm just saying, it would be sad if we somehow disperse the money available, you bring the items back, and now we don't have any money.
Well, and my intent is to apply for grant dollars, not these dollars, so that's, but anyway.
All right, could we move into a roll call vote?
Sure.
Councilmember Arth,
Yes.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Yes,
and Councilmember Keisler,
Aye.
and Councilmember Lucchese,
Aye.
Mayor Bryan.
Aye. Motion carries. All right,
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, moving into item B, resolution 2020-04, allowing the continuation of teleconference meetings. We do have that lovely memo from Mr. Kenny's office regarding the state of emergency we're still in and the relaxation of the Brown Act rules.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't have any questions.
Any questions?
Well, in the resolution that's before us, the third whereas says the city of Dunsmuir is experiencing an increase in COVID-19 cases. Is there any information on that?
I have to admit, I copied this from the city of Mount Shasta.
Okay, fair enough.
They posted on Facebook today, there was a death today.
Well, that's not necessarily an increase in cases.
I'm just
And-
saying.
That's a
Yeah.
decrease.
As I read the local media, Dunsmuir now has slightly over 50% of its population, County of Siskiyou has about 50% of its population receiving at least one vaccination. And we barely get over 50% for those that have had 2 or more vaccinations. And I don't think it's right to be held hostage. I'm gonna stop wearing masks pretty soon. And I support schools and hospitals and every institution going back to normal as soon as we can. If we need special protocols for those that are dangerous to the rest of our community, okay, but I'd like to go back to face-to-face meetings. So I'll be voting no again.
So just as of today, there are 63 new cases in the county of Siskiyou, and they do not break down the cases per jurisdiction because we're too small. And so it could be a public health information release, so they do not do that. But
Violation.
our 7-day average is 52 cases per day.
Okay, thank you so much. We're still in the questions phase.
Yep.
I'm gonna open this up to public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment on this item?
As I'm well in favor of
Say your name
face-to-face.
and,
Oh, Dwight Bailey, 5906 Castle. I'm in favor of in-person meetings myself. But as it says, there is an emergency situation. We have members of various meetings within this city that are compromised immune and cannot serve their function if we had to meet in person. As such, without stating names, which members it is, whatever, there are members that are compromised and cannot fulfill their appointed or elected of job without it. I just want that to go on record. I think that helps understand that we're still in it for, I'm still okay with meetings like they are by Zoom, that there is an emergency, although I would like to go back to normal as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bailey. Is there any additional public comment on this item? Seeing none, I will now close public comment. We can proceed with discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
I'd like to put my view in here. I really do feel that I would like to be in the council. I look forward to being there. But with Omicron and for the first time seeing from Sky Lakes, I think it was, boosted individuals like myself in the hospital, some of them in ICU. So it's just a mix right now, and I'm hoping this whole Omicron thing will go away soon. But for right now, I think that it's valuable to have the option, and I appreciate that.
All right, thank you so much, Councilman Deutsch. Any further discussion?
No, I motion to adopt resolution 2022-04, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dunsmuir permitting the continuation of teleconferencing city meetings by title only.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion at hand? All those, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Arf
No,
and Councilmember Deutsch,
Yes.
Councilmember Keisler,
Yes.
Councilmember
Aye.
Lucchese.
Aye.
And Mayor Brian.
Aye, as well. Motion carries 4-1. All right, takes us to new business this evening. We have item A, discussion of the use of receiverships to assist in abatement of issues for appropriate properties.
Yes, I asked this to be put on the agenda, and I wanted to discuss it with you. You know, we have an active code enforcement-based program here, and it's working well. And but there's code enforcement abatement sounds good, but it's hard to do, and you have to have all the tools available in the appropriate places. And you probably heard of these receiverships programs that when you have the appropriate property, you can petition the court to have a receiver put in possession of the property. Then the city is then dealing with the receiver under the court order, and the receiver can borrow money to use to fix up the property, can sell it, can turn it, with a number of things they could do depending on the potential value of the property and what's most appropriate prospects of making a success of the property. It may end up just being tearing the property down, but in the end, the result would be better than the start, no matter what we do, and it should make more property available for other building. And it would, when it's sold, it's usually sold to somebody who wants to flip it. No one's going to put a bunch of money out and then sit on the property again. So now, obviously, there's considerations. We need to have the property that's valuable enough to do whatever needs to be done. And I wasn't aware that that was the case here, but we do have a piece of property that looks like it's eligible, 2967 Sacramento Avenue. And, you know, it's been subject to a lot of action, and it's not getting fixed. So we're gonna, if city council is comfortable with that, we'd like to proceed, and not necessarily all the way through the receivership, but proceed with that process. And if it's eligible, we would file a suit to have a receiver appointed. And we wanted, if you guys are okay with that, I want you to know that. And, you know, you may get some feedback, blowback from people, property owners, but normally these property owners aren't the ones you're worried about blowback from. In this case, we can't even contact the owner. So we'd have to serve them and everything. When the owner finds out that somebody's going to take their property, they may take a renewed interest in doing something about it, or if they don't, that's fine. And there's a cost involved. We're going to have to front attorney's fees. They should end up in a lien on the property along with the work that's done on the work of the receiver. And that lien is superior to all liens on the property other than tax liens and everything. So that lien is superior to the mortgage. So the mortgage holder, if there's a mortgage holder, they get notice of this, they may want to pay attention because somebody's going to fix that property up and their lien's going to be junior to that. So that we would like to experiment with this and see how it works and see if we have eligible property and give this a try, if that's okay with the city council.
Question?
Yes, Councilman Deutsch.
John, is this kind of like a first step for us entering into the whole business of the distressed buildings and et cetera, and having a process that we can actually employ down the line for other properties?
Yeah, it's a process that's it's obviously property dependent on the facts on the particular property. But if somebody has a building that has a value and they're not keeping it up, which this may be, or the property, the building needs to be demolished and the underlying property has a value, then this is something we can do. And it's on a case-by-case basis, obviously, and we have to make the petition to the court. The court has to be satisfied that this is an appropriate case, and we have to be satisfied that, in my view, that this isn't a situation where the city's going to have to be paying money that's not going to get back. I mean, we could do that, but not with our budget. So we have to be sensitive to the cases where property we would use this receivership on. And I would.
Mr. Mayor?
Can we let our attorney finish briefly?
Well, just the other thing, I'd work with the city manager and the finance department on that issue, and what I'd like to do if we have an eligible property is not have to come back to the city council each time, but before we do anything, we would memo the city council, because you don't, and then if somebody had a problem with that, they could say so. And if you get a constituent calling saying they're stealing my property, you will know what's going on ahead of time.
Councilman Keisler, you had a question?
John, all this is a way for us to take pieces of property that are detrimental, basically, to the health and well-being of citizens, because some of these houses are just full of lowlives that are just like all bad news. So this is a way of making the neighborhood safer. And if the city ends up, unfortunately, but if the city ends up with the piece of property, then all is ever going to happen is it's going to be better. If somebody's going to buy it, fix it up, it's not going to stay in the same state that it's in. I think this piece of property has been like 6 or 7 years that we've been talking about, and it ain't nothing good come of it.
Well,
So-
Big Dave, it's not actually, one way to go would be have the city do the work and then charge the owner, like put a lien against it. This is actually having a third party that the court would appoint who would do it with their own money, their own risk. So the city would actually be one step removed.
Yeah, I got that, Mr. Mayor. It's a force. We're forcing them to do something because we can't afford to do it. This is a good call. I'm all for it.
Just point out that when we do it, our liens don't necessarily end up superior to other liens that are on the property, number one. And, we're not in the business of determining what property has value, which property. We would rather have entrepreneurial money, venture capital decide where they want to pay for it. So that's what we're doing. What makes this attractive. The other thing, Big Dave, is that what we're really doing, we're not taking property from anybody. What we're doing is taking control of the property and doing what the property owner should be doing under the supervision of the court.
Maybe that's the way I should have phrased it, but yeah, I got it.
So I have a couple of questions, Mr. Kenny.
Yeah.
What is the typical time spent, effort, maybe even just expense in the initial process of filing?
I don't know, we haven't done yet, but it is not going, it's not going to be big filing. Now, what happens if we get blowback and somebody wants to take us down to federal court and say you don't have the authority to do this and things like that?
Have you been through this before with other cities?
No. This is new. I'm aware, but I haven't done one. But the preparing the papers, that is not going to be a big thing. And I can tell you this: I am not going to incur a lot of lawyers' fees unless there's a strong likelihood that you're going to get it back. I understand the situation with this. We have a lot of things we'd like to do, and we don't have the resources to do them. So what this would be used for would be supported by the value of the property that's getting improved.
Are there any clarifying questions? Yes, Councilman Art?
Well, I'm working on hearsay and secondhand information, but I've been told that the city of Weed, trying to use the tools in their toolbox on empty and abandoned buildings, that they tried a receivership and somehow drew a judge that said, I don't believe in receiverships.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I heard that too, and I heard that they ended up in federal court or something. But I happened to be up in court today on our Golden Eagle thing, and so they have the City of Weed case was being heard, and the issue then was whether the property owner should pay attorney's fees or not. So it's in that particular, and I haven't had an opportunity to get back to the people who were doing this, but in that particular case, apparently everything came to the end and they made a motion for attorney's fees, and now the property owner was trying to fight the attorney's fees. I don't think they're going to win on that one. And I think what happened is that the property was torn down, was demolished. So I don't know anything other than that, but I think I don't know how it penciled out in terms of money, but I think that was a success. But I am going to look into that because I want to know where the pitfalls are. I do not want to start down a path that ends up just being a quagmire.
But it's a well-settled process in California law.
Oh, yeah, it's done.
It's
It's
a
done frequently.
national process.
Sometimes in the smaller areas, you can't find property that has the appropriate value or enough interest in. But I think that's changing. And I think here you will find investment money that would like to take over properties. So.
My understanding is they did not file an appeal to the appellate court on that case due to financing.
I mean, there's the law is well settled. There's no question about the power. If the judge does it, they have authority to do it. And and this was carefully crafted legislation to address a problem that's pretty widespread.
Would you like to make your own motion?
I have a question.
Yes.
So for the purpose of this case, do we happen to have a receiver interested?
We're working with the one out of San Francisco, and I think it may be the one that did the weed case. Yeah.
Well, and I know of 2 receivership organizations that I met at the conference last fall that showed a lively interest. They've been.
Well, why don't you send me down?
I was going to say, I also had one from a couple years back.
Yeah, I remember some too, but
they've been particularly interested.
And we can experiment too. I mean, we use one and then find them and try another and find it. I'd like to get something in place where we know the parameters and have a process that kind of works smoothly, and we,
Yeah.
And the other thing I think too is that as this happens, the property owners might realize, hey, I guess these people mean business.
Well, I had the good fortune to actually sit through participate in. It was over 3 hours workshop on receiverships at the conference. And the city of Vallejo had a major problem, and they ended up forcing over 100 into receivership, 100 properties in the course of 5 years. But the percentage of ones they began the proceedings on that actually went to receivership was only about 5%.
Yeah.
Wow. So you get mostly compliance once the first several properties are taken.
Yeah, I think what happens is a property owner, when they get served with the paper saying, hey, somebody's going to be appointed receiver over your property, then it's like, well, maybe I can't stonewall this forever.
All right, any other clarifying questions? Nope. I'll open this one up for public comments. If you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand under the reactions tab, or if you're here in the building with us, please come to the podium.
We have a public comment from Tim Holt, who's on Zoom. Tim, if you can, maybe I need to unmute you.
Thank you, Mr. Holt.
You're still muted. There you go.
Okay, I am unmuted. Just briefly, I do not know all the ins and outs of this receivership. I just want to comment that I'm glad you're discussing this. There have been many properties over the years here in Dunsmuir that have been allowed to crumble, unfortunately. So it's just heartening to hear that you are going to start looking into this and how you can kind of reverse this trend. So just want to commend you for looking into this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Holt.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, is there any additional public comment? All right, seeing none, I will close public comment on this item.
I have a question, John.
Yes.
So with the receivership, if you have an eligible receiver come in, petition the court, and basically receive control of the property, is the property then deeded over to the receiver, or does it remain deeded to the original property owner?
Well, first of all, the receiver doesn't petition. The city petitions to have that receiver appointed. The receiver gets possession of the property by court order. So the receiver is in effect the owner of the property, has all the rights of ownership, can sell it, can borrow money on it, can do what they want to do. The difference being that if you go through the process and all the liens and everything are settled and everything's done, the property up to stuff, or if it was sold and there's excess funds, they go back to the property owner.
Also, it does not transfer title.
Oh, okay.
They maintain title and liability for that matter.
I literally just started talking about receivership in Wairika yesterday, so
Well,
we will go on a journey together and figure this out. So
You know,
thank
I mean, you can have receivers that basically pointed for people, and it's the same idea. You need to have a responsible person being able to make the decisions and doing what needs to be done, and as in other personal receiverships, and this receiver is actually working under, and it's not day-to-day supervision, but it has to get court authority to what they want to do and have the court approve it, so it's not, it's under supervision.
Yeah. Okay.
And we also would be looking at it for.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. So what is the action out of here? Is there an action we want to take? I don't see a motion or anything in the package.
No,
Provide direction.
Yeah, I guess we could have a motion to the city council agreeing that they want to adopt this process and let us give it a try.
So moved.
Second.
I would like just within that, if before we multiply from 1 to, there may be 2, we start out with it at once and proceed. But before we get to 10, I'd like to have some proof of concept for.
Well, what I think we would do is try to keep you appraised on a case-by-case basis. And I don't want to be filing a lawsuit on behalf of the city, although you could authorize me to do it, and I have the clerk, but I would like the city council to be aware of it first, because like you'll get a phone call from somebody who'll give you a line of stuff that's incorrect, and it's much better to be able to say, yes, I'm aware of that and I know what's going on, than it is to.
Well, John, you've said that you'd rather not have to come back to the council for approval on each time. How about at least that you have to notify us that something has taken place so that we can be aware of it?
That's what I mean. We will notify the city council by memo before we file another one.
Okay.
Yeah, that works.
I'm fine with that.
Is there any additional discussion or questions? I think this is a historic step forward for Dunsmuir.
I hope. We'll see. We'd like to have some good success or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Could we do a roll call vote?
Sure.
Councilmember Arth
Big eye.
and Councilmember Deutsch,
Bigger eye.
Councilmember Keisler,
The biggest eye.
and Councilmember Lucchese,
Aye.
and Mayor Bryan.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you,
Okay,
John.
thank you.
Thank you, John.
Good seeing you. People
Drive
even
safe.
remotely.
Yeah, good
Drive
to see you,
safe,
John.
sir.
And I just wanted to just mention along these lines that, the first tool in this toolbox that kind of Bruce alluded to, and I think John even alluded to a little bit, is that we are compiling our list of abandoned and vacant properties. We're going out to do our inspections soon. And so through that process as well, we're going to start gearing up for noticing which properties are which. And so I just wanted to mention that as well.
It is really like a tool in the toolbox as part of the process. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most powerful way to produce compliance.
I'll call you tomorrow, John.
Have a good drive.
So
Bye,
thanks.
John.
Drive safe, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move into a new business, item B, mid-year budget review.
And so as Juliana mentioned, Finance Committee has not had a chance to look at this. So if we do want to bring it back, that's fine. Otherwise, I am happy to move through this item and talk you through it. And it's ultimately City Council's decision anyway. But I'll take direction from you guys.
Pending anyone else's objections, I'd like to have the Finance Committee to have the time to dive into this.
Yeah, I think I would like the time to, unless, is there anything on here, Blake, that's time sensitive?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Nope.
So I'd be fine just tabling this item to a future meeting.
Yep.
You can save
Yep,
your voice.
I just knew that I wanted to get mid-year, around the mid-year. So I just wanted to throw it on, but if I'm happy with what you guys want.
Councilman?
Well, I looked at the memo, I looked at the budget sheets, and I'm surprised that there's no mention made of the airport at all. If I look at the airport enterprise fund, I see a bunch of minuses for the bottom line. And we know in our budget, there's a number of priority items related to dealing with the minuses. So I hope that's part of what goes on in Finance Committee.
We anticipated your question.
Yeah.
And the minuses, we did talk about this at the last meeting that we were able to have. And right now, the airport is gonna look like it is in a large deficit, but that is because we are waiting on to receive the reimbursement from the FAA for the runway and apron project. But I will make sure that when this returns to the council from Finance Committee, we will make sure that there's a narrative and items related to the airport on there for you.
The relevant statistic is the last 6 years, the last 6 fiscal years, the airport has lost money. And I don't know when that's going to change.
Actually, we're on track to be in a positive after this fiscal year, I believe is what Blake has projected.
Well,
I
yes.
can't wait to see that.
Oh, I'm gonna make you eat those words.
All right.
Wah, wah, wah.
So,
I am glad I recommended that Juliana be the chair of that committee. Thank you.
Yeah.
all right, so we have a number of items coming up next.
I'm sorry to
meeting.
interrupt. Did I hear a second? I heard Mr. Case.
I don't think anyone seconded.
Second.
I'll second it.
Table.
There we go.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
Thank you,
Item is
Wendy.
tabled. So we will pick up the mid-year budget review at the next meeting. I hope that gives Finance Committee
Yeah,
time.
we should be fine.
And then
Well, the
just a
next meeting-
reminder,
The next finance committee meeting is potentially scheduled at the same time as solid waste, so we may need to find a different time.
I think maybe you guys could meet, well, I don't know if you
Yeah,
guys
we
are
could
able to,
probably,
maybe meet
we'll
this next
figure it
Monday.
out. We'll get it.
Sure. Okay, then we have a presentation from Dunsmuir Live regarding their petition for the California Theater, should come up next meeting, as well as important discussions regarding the city manager search. So,
I do- Thing that we'll be looking at down the line. I did do with Blake the initial research into what it would take to get the camera system for the council chambers. I've identified what the cost would be for the camera part of it, and Blake and I are going to be talking about what particular PC we want to use, whether it's a PC or a notebook, and we'll be able to come back for with the money for that for the COVID funding.
all right, thank you so much, Bruce. Are there any other items for future agenda that should be brought up at this point?
Well, I think we ought to stay true to what we talked about in the last meeting for the funds that are covering the resource center and the library roof. Motion by Lucchese, second by Keisler. City council meeting telecommunication equipment, high priority item. More info on employee retention pay. That's not a high priority for me, but it might be for others. Fiber optic options, that's a high priority for me. We got to do broadband, and to consider any additional projects from the Chamber of Commerce or additional project that may come up before next meeting. So I don't want us to stop on prioritizing and funding.
No, I think the comments from Councilmember Deutsch, Blake, myself, we're working on it. It's not something I think we could have gotten together and, okay, yeah.
The other side of it too, I remember with that conversation is we need to research all these potential things we could spend on, but we probably need to deal with the big missing piece in next year's budget, the sheriff's contract, before we can make a lot of long-term decisions with the larger dollar signs.
Right.
So
We are working on it though.
And presumably next year's COVID funding will be usable for that.
presumably, yes. Yeah, no, it'll help soften the blow, but we'll know a lot more probably closer to the adoption of our next budget. As far as that, and we have 3 years to allocate these, but I'm very much in favor of, I think we all are, researching how to get fiber optic to City Hall first and foremost, to start things. And if you have any other items that come up between now and next Thursday or Friday, just email them to myself or Blake, and we can consider them for.
Are we doing pre-agenda reviews or no?
We have been, it's a little bit broken. I should probably send out a new schedule because various people have been missed, and then I plug it back in. Just basically based on memory. We
I
switch
think
it out.
they're useful.
No,
I do.
we have been doing them.
Yep.
But, all right, that being concluded, we could certainly entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank
So
you,
good
everybody.
Good job, Mr. Mayor.
Look at
Good
that.
job, Blake and Wendy. Blake and Wendy have been taking care of us. Thank you both.
Yeah, good job, you guys.
Thank you.
Blake, are you the one going on a vacation or?
I
Okay,
am.
well, you have a very nice time and don't you dare check your email.
Say hi to Grandma.
I will say hi to Grandma. I'm gonna get a nice Kringle and eat some Kringle with Grandma.
Take care.
Yeah.
Good night, Emmett.
Oh, man. I have to say, look at that. It is 7:05. Is it really 7:05?
We actually had like 5